A geopolitical storm is brewing in South Asia following the increased presence of US military in Bangladesh. Media, defense experts, and political analysts have started expressing, some kind of apprehension about this increased presence of the US in Bangladesh. There have been allegations that the US was behind toppling Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh. Now, media reports say the US is behind the unrest in Nepal also. So there are also reports that say US army is instigating Arakan army in Myanmar. India and China are viewing this new development with suspicion. Perhaps this is why India and China have come closer despite their differences of opinion. The port city of Bangladesh, Chittagong, has been witnessing a series of joint military exercises by the US Army and the Bangladesh Army. At present also, a fourth exercise is going on. So this is in a span of a few months. The media have started expressing fears about the new situation. So let's go into the details of the emerging geopolitical crisis in South Asia. Welcome to Insights. I am Hari Kumar. As I said, it was the former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina that first publicly expressed a fear that the US is trying to destabilize South Asia. She said the US, some of the intermediaries who were working for the US, she didn't name the US, she said a major Western power had approached her and pressurized her to hand over St. Martin Island, which is owned by Bangladesh, to them. But she refused. She said the political upheaval in Bangladesh and the toppling of her government resulted from her refusal to yield to the Western pressure. So she was the first to drop the bombshell. Now later on, an American stooge, Muhammad Yunus, is ruling Bangladesh. And why now people are discussing about, a US sponsored government or US sponsored move to destabilize South Asia? Because the port city of Chittagong has been witnessing frequent joint military exercises between the US and the Bangladesh. Of late, a couple of days ago, two Super Hercules C-130 aircrafts from a Japanese base arrived or landed in Chittagong. And reports said a large number of US military personnel were inside the plane and they landed in Chittagong. Now they are engaged in a military exercise with the Bangladesh army. In a span of a few months, the Chittagong city and neighborhood witnessed three such exercises. Then their names are Operation Pacific. Then there was another military exercise named Angel 25. One more military exercise named Tiger Lightning 2025 was held, and this one is the latest. So the US is not going to do such back-to-back military exercises without a proper reason. Why the US is doing that? The conclusion is the US actually wants a military base somewhere northeast of India, and some say they want to get some parts of northeast Indian states. So that was why they fomented trouble in Manipur. There have been reports that said that the US was behind, the Kuki National Army that created trouble in Manipur. So there is reason to believe that, because those organizations in northeast India that foment or create trouble have active links with the US, because this area you find a large number of organizations belonging to the Baptist Church. And everybody knows that Baptist Church is based in the US. So this is why the reports say the US is behind the trouble in Northeast India. Now you factor in the allegation of Sheikh Hasina also. Now there are other reports that say the US is behind the Arakan army. You'd find it difficult to believe that all on a sudden Arakan army became so powerful and they have got modern weapons. Where did they get funding to buy all those weapons? Who gave them training? And they successfully, removed Myanmar army from the area, and they have got some kind of independence in the area at present. So these are all evidences that support the reports that US army has got some motives in this area. Actually, the US wants to build a huge base here. Initially they wanted to take in possession Saint Martin's Island. There is a reason for that. Though Bangladesh says this island belongs to them, Myanmar also claims rights over this island. So now that gives the US an opportunity to interfere. So perhaps US is trying for that. In the near future, perhaps Arakan army may invade St. Martin's Island, and now playing the role of a middleman and interlocutor, the US is going to intervene, and eventually the US will have the rights over St. Martin's Island. But they are not satisfied with that. St. Martin Island is not big enough to satisfy the huge ambitions of the US. So now they want to get a decisive control over a base in Chittagong, and that is why they are frequently engaged in military exercises in Chittagong. Some reports say China knows this very well, and that is why they are willing to forget the differences of opinion with India for the time being. I would underline that, for the time being. And now that is why they gave a warm welcome to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, despite the differences of opinion with India. Now India has also realized that. Now here is the common enemy. Here is the biggest threat. Here is a country that is taking active part in destabilizing South Asia. You know the upheaval in Nepal, without the support of an organization, without funding from somewhere, it couldn't happen. Definitely that is not backed by China, because the regime that was overthrown in Nepal was a pro-China regime. That was a communist regime. So if somebody uprooted, somebody toppled that government, it cannot be China. China cannot dream of a better government or a more friendly government in Kathmandu. So definitely the US could be behind that. The fingers are definitely pointing at the US. Now the situation is worsening. Now if India and China joins hands, and if India and China decides to take on the US, it's going to be tough for the US. Now India is strengthening its defenses, or India is developing Andaman and Nicobar. Many people think it is solely aimed at China. I don't think so. I think India has in mind the increasing influence of the US in the region also. Perhaps the intervention of Sonia Gandhi against the project also supports this conclusion. It means that the Sonia has got active links with the Western world, and perhaps some kind of pressure from the Western world might have been on her to oppose the government of India project. Anyway, the geopolitical storm is brewing, and in the coming days, we don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, I will be back with updates. Till then, goodbye.